Helena Grácio from Lisbon Polytechnic, and I'm going to present my research from that is Nisa Quartz Inlaid Pottery Visual Inventory, Formal and Decorative Corpus. And first of all, I would like to thank for the opportunity to present my work at the conference on the image. So this research comes from my doctoral research in design field, and it's focused on Nisa quartz inlaid pottery craft technique and from the recognition of its risk of extinction due to the few remaining producers and from the absence of new interested in learning the technique. This craft technique, it represents a secular heritage, and its history and customs, it carries a strong social and community significance, which reinforces the need for an approach capable of guaranteeing the viability of its heritage, not only for the future, but also for the contemporaneity. We believe that by knowing a set of processes and transactions that characterize these objects that are studied and its processes of making it, it's possible to recognize the shared culture that it represents as an heritage. And it also permits to apprehend the diversity of singularities that represents it. And so, to know better this culture, it's good to understand that the oldest written reference to quartz inlaid pottery goes back to 16th century in Portugal, and there are several references, namely in Lisbon, the capital of Portugal, and in other Portuguese village. But there are also other references in several places. Namely in former Portuguese diaspora, and as well through the discoveries commercial routes that the Portuguese made in the discovery times. For example, in Cape Verde, Kenya, Goa, Philippines, Macau, etc. So this research developed in a study from the formal genealogy of the pieces and the objects created in this material culture. So we believe that by addressing features such as techniques, types, forms, decoration, the potters and its rituals of use, it is possible to understand better the policies of value attribution and meaning that can give a better comprehension of what it means, the culture, and it can establish the dialogue between the crafts and design by crossing knowledge and practices of know-how. And we believe that can nurture the construction and safeguarding of this knowledge from for the future and the paths that can be built with this knowledge. So, to understand better, particularly in Nisa, that's why it gives name to this craft technique. It is reported the existence of 5 potteries in the beginning of the 20th century. Nowadays, we only have 2 potteries working with 2 couples that are between the 75 and almost 80 years old. The present investigation also arises from the Portuguese UNESCO National Commission recommendations for the urgent inventory of this craft technique, since there is no new interested or new younger persons practicing or learning it. So, in the absence of an in-depth study with a global view on the techniques and shapes, decorations, we understood as vital the need to elaborate the careful inventory of the objects and pieces in production, as well to understand the ones that were produced during the 20th century that are in some exhibits of national museums. The inventory of the Nisa Quartz Inlaid pottery were from the Portuguese National Museum of Ethnology and the Popular Art Museum, that resulted in a collection of data from 252 objects, which 169 belonged to the National Museum of Ethnology and 83 pieces from the Popular Art Museum. And it was also possible to access 3 private collections. 2 are in a small village or hamlet that's near Nisa, that it goes by the name of Cacheiro, and one of these collections is in Nisa village, and that were a total of 33 objects. After the first collections, it was developed a descriptive summary that's carried out from the data collected, giving rise to the classificatory exercise of shapes, decorations, motifs, and what enabled the production of a summary table, which allowed the use of the information in a more systematized way. So, for the beginning, there were, after the gathering all the information and photos and all the data from each object, it was created an inventory template so it could survey and inventory the studied objects. After that, it was created a graphic about trying to show visually the formal corpus of the main forms of the objects from Nisa Quartz Inlaid pottery. And it was developed some categories that come from the recognition of an original object, and then the objects that we considered it were replica, and mutant objects, and then objects that resulted from a linguistic change, formal change. After that, we understood to be vital also to understand each one of the main decorative motifs, because the compositions are composed by several small decorative motifs that each one of them has some meaning. So, first of all, it was divided by 3 themes, main themes that are flora, fauna, and spiritual motifs. So we gathered the principal flora motifs, and afterwards we can see here some of them: roses, shapes of daisies, and several forms of local flora. And then the spiritual ones, and the ones that represent, even from a very simple way, the fauna, the local fauna, as snails, snakes, owls' eyes, and spiders. Okay. And after that, it was possible to understand better what each composition meant and which one would be more decorated with more flora or fauna or spiritual motifs. So these are some examples from the decorations that goes in some pieces. Some of them are more elaborated. In this case, we have a piece that has like small pieces of quartz that have approximately 1 to 2 millimeters of diameter, and then here we have another one that is very close, the size of the quartz stones, and this is a little bit bigger, but only between 2 and 3 millimeters. And this one is another type of decoration, more simple and not so detailed one, and these pieces of stones go between 3 to 4 millimeters wide. And here we can see an example where we studied the all composition motifs, and to understand which one of the small motifs of fauna, flora, and spiritual meanings belong to, and where they belong in the whole decorative composition. So, after this detailed study and formal survey of the assets, as well as the motives and the compositions, we consider it really important to carry out a more in-depth study and analysis of the decorative compositions of the various inventoried pieces and objects, and that this decision stems from mainly from the recognition of the decorative composition's great rigor and from the detailed use in their arrangements over each piece, or even making one almost guess that precision instruments were used in the composition's drawing. What we understood is that there's a very great rigor and detailed in each composition, in the drawings, but they are all done without no measurements and no instrument that allows to be so accurate. So the compilation of information gathered at the formal and decorative level, it allowed to build a corpus capable of integrating the repertoire of pottery lexicon, and proved to be quite satisfactory, since until now it had not been possible to document such detailed information in only one place about Nisa's quartz inlaid pottery. None of this information was gathered or inventoried. So we believe that the information of this corpus demonstrates the capacity, ingenuity, as well as the valorization used in its constitutions over several decades and centuries. And we understand that to be not only a local tradition, but also with a value, a global value. And we believe that safeguarding this and knowledge in a file format can actually give one that usually is transmitted empirically, gives access to generations to come, and that offers access to new stakeholders that can be able to apprehend the technique and its symbolic values, and then draw and see new ways of communicating and learning this technique, and see new path for the future. So we believe that in this engagement we can sense of how the designer's view can contribute to the safeguard and promotion of this craft technique, and thus build new paths for its practice in contemporary times. So I would like to thank you for your time and attention, and please contact me if you would like to exchange and further knowledge about my research. Thank you.